I just want to shoot the shit with you because we're similar in a lot of different ways to where we're pretty objective. At least I'm trying to be more and more objective. Of course, we have different opinions, and everyone's got their own say so on different things. But I feel like a lot of people, when they are on one team, it's hard for people to even listen to the other team. The reason I was attracted by your content from the get go, and then a couple weeks later, you ended up coming to visit me in Tampa, and that was awesome. Uh, gotta love TikTok.
I love it.
And so you're not really polarizing. A lot of people, I like to look at the comments because I think it's fascinating people's mentality, and I like to kind of consume that side of content. Not all the time, but I think it's fascinating to see those different opinions and see how people operate. Because sometimes you comment, sometimes you don't. Sometimes you'll stitch a video, and you're very objective, which we have a lot of that in common. And I haven't always been objective, so this podcast has really helped me a lot. I think talking to a lot of different people, hearing a lot of different opinions, because when you interview people or do a podcast, you're forced to kind of listen to it in long form. And I know that's why I'm super stoked. We talked about this when you were visiting me. Is I'm so glad you started a podcast. I know you're in the early stages, and I know you're probably trying. But to me, it's like it doesn't matter if you have all the ducks in a row to do a podcast. If you're just doing long content, you can call it a podcast if you want, or you can just call it a conversation with
A
friends.
conversation with friends. That's
Exactly.
how I see it. That's how
Exactly.
I see it.
The cool thing with the podcast is just recorded for all of time and for people to consume it. But we have these conversations when we're not recording. What I like about recording and putting it out to the masses is it gets other people to consume that objective opinion, thought, topic, whatever it is. That's what's beautiful about podcasting versus like TV, right? If you watch news anchors discuss.
So one-sided. I hate it.
Right. It's
I
so
hate
one
it.
sided. Podcast
And
is like you could watch a good podcast, which, by the way, your last couple episodes have been awesome. But you could watch a good podcast where you could see the guest or the host kind of going through that unedited, like critical thinking. And they're just like, okay, let me think about it. I'm going to say what I'm going to say. He's going to say what he's going to say. And then I'll kind of react live in form versus like, we got to hurry and go to commercial break. It's
oh,
podcast is great in that.
I love it, especially when you have differing opinions, because
Mm,
you're forced to see both sides. So, as you mentioned, you have the media and it's one sided. And it's
that's right.
not wrong to watch media, but to do it properly, you have to watch both sides. So,
Yeah.
in terms of being objective, that's the thing. Everybody here talking about privilege, privilege, privilege. I have a privilege. I have the privilege of being Italian, okay? Because the Italian school system teaches you to look at everything from all sides and then create your own opinion. Okay, there's no Italian that voted only one side for his whole past. We all voted left, we all voted right, we all voted center at one point in our lives, and we're okay with that. But because we look at different sources all the time. So yeah, the beauty of the podcast is for a lazy person, and nowadays we're lazy as hell, man. We're lazy as
Oh
hell.
my
Like
God.
we really don't
Yeah.
want to do any kind of work, especially if it's not paid.
Hmm.
I feel like it is a good way for a lazy person to see both points of view. And one place that is pissing me off madly about having people just see one point of view is the whole situation we have now in the Middle East. That's one thing that
Yeah, that's kind of crazy, man. What's your whole thought process? And if you don't know, if people should be consuming that type of content because it's especially in America because you see all the refugees that are out there and people that are trying to fight the good fight, but they're trying to get people out. And even now, I think it was just earlier this week, the U.S. State Department released a statement, a travel advisory for the whole U.S.
yep.
saying do not leave the US. And if you do, just be careful because I'm paraphrasing, but be careful because not everyone likes America right now. And that's kind of a scary thing, right? Because it's you see it happening in New York and different cities all over the country here, but trying to word this the right way. Uh
Take your time, man. It's hard.
it,
It's fucking
it's
hard.
such a fucking gnarly it's such a fucking gnarly thing, dude. Because I didn't think in our lifetime, especially me as a father, it's terrifying now. But you see kind of like the shift. Our government, the shift in their mentality has been fascinating to watch, no matter what, left or right, no matter what side you're on. Over the course of decades of this shitty political system that we have in this country. And of course, we've talked about this. It's shitty in a lot of places. Like America is not the worst by any means. So I'm not saying that. I am
It's probably
saying
the
though,
best.
right. I am saying that everything everything rises and falls, right? Like you look, I loved you did a couple videos on the Roman Empire, which was fascinating because you're Roman. So it was cool to hear because there was that trend going around.
Think
But
about it every day. In case people
yeah,
are wondering, I think about it every single day.
as you should. It's
Worst part
unbelievable.
of history classes,
Yeah,
understanding that you come from those people and they do not exist anymore.
it's unbelievable. And I feel like, I mean, because I want to get into that too, but I feel like that's where America has been. And we're so, because our news organization is, there's no true journalists anymore. So we're only kind of fed what we think we want to hear. So like these news organizations pretty much tell us two things. Either A, something that's going on great in America, they're going to tell us. Or if there's shitty things going on in other countries. There's never going to be a time, I feel like you always watch in these movies, where there's like the end of the world and
Mhm.
we have like this countdown clock of like when the meteor is going to come. I feel like in America, it's so shitty from a news perspective and journalist integrity. We would be the last ones to know if anything happened in America because we just don't like to talk shit about our own country. We don't like to say this
Yet you
President Trump is,
do. Man, you do.
well, it depends, right?
There's so
If
much
you're watching
shit talk about
Fox,
America on American media, man.
well, it's
Such
different
a
because it's Fox versus CNN. Like in terms of,
but even Fox, cioè,
yeah.
you guys trash talk about yourself like nuts.
Yeah, but not in the way that like we talk shit about Russia, I guess is my point. Does that make sense? Like go ahead.
No, I on this one I disagree completely. There,
Talk to me.
I believe that especially I mean, you're millennial, right?
I think so. I mean, I'm 38, so I think I'm.
Okay, I believe that millennial Gen Z, but mostly Gen Z,
Mhm.
they have a definitive hatred for America. It's all about,
Sure.
it's like they're being the worst enemy of themselves.
Yeah, sure.
That's the way I see it. There's a lot of trash talk. America here, America there. America has faulted
Right.
everything. It's we should follow the European system. And I'm like,
Yeah,
then there's the immigrants that were like, no, this place is actually fucking cool. That's why we're here.
right.
What the actual fuck? Sorry for the French, but I take this very at heart.
Yeah. No, and what you're talking about is like water cooler talk, right?
Water
Like
cooler talk.
are you familiar with that term?
No.
So water cooler talk is just a term that in America we use when you're at like the corporate office job
Yeah.
and you only speak your mind at the water cooler when everyone's getting their water and you're filling up the water for a couple seconds,
Okay.
right? And you get that water and you shoot the shit. You're like, oh, Jeff, did you hear what happened? He cheated on his wife. Like that's
Okay.
water cooler talk, right? But when
Okay.
you go sit back on your desk and you talk to your employees and your boss, it's professional. It's not fucking, and that's what, like you're right in the aspect I think of Americans like to talk shit, but only around the water cooler, only when you're out drinking beers with friends. Like you, from a news organization perspective, I don't know if that's true. I don't know if we think we're hot shit. Like look at what's happening right now. Look at Ukraine. Look at Israel. Look at all that stuff. We're still not saying this is what Americans is doing. We're doing this. We're not helping. We are helping. Like with Ukraine, that's a great example, right? Because it's a
Of
proxy war that we're
Israel.
funding. You know what I mean? But we would
Israel and
never.
Palestine, you see protests of Americans saying this is America's fault.
Right. Well,
Which is also a funny conversation because
yeah.
America kind of funded both sides. So you, cioè,
It's a proxy war, bro. But
so
and
I
so
don't
that's
know. Cioè.
you're right, dude. You're right, and that's my point. My point is though, when have you ever seen someone on our news in America say that? Never.
Not the news,
Right? Yeah.
but the American people, the young people, yes.
Of course. And yeah.
There's the discrepancy between the sentiment and what people and what the news says. Big
Right.
discrepancy.
Yeah. And
Cioè,
that's what
we
I
can
mean.
talk.
Like, yeah. And that's what I mean. Like, if a meteor was to come our way and it was to hit America, we're not going to turn on Fox or CNN. They're not going to tell us that.
No.
You know what I'm saying? Like, because we think, it's so corrupt that we're literally getting fed exactly what they want us to.
But it's not just
listen to.
media, even influencers.
Sure.
So I had conversation with a couple of influencers in the political side, both sides also.
Yeah.
And I gotta say that the narrative is very similar to the media. It's like the new kind of media, and I don't like it.
Yeah.
I think it's same shit, different platform.
Yeah. Well, and what type of political influencers were these? Were these just folks that they have like podcasts or?
Influencers, TikTokers, podcasts,
Yeah.
Instagram people. I watch influencers on both sides, and the narrative that I see on media and
Mhm.
their narrative is very similar. It's like the new way of media just for young people. I
Yeah.
don't know. And then again, I hate how little global analysis they're doing about stuff. I keep on bringing up the whole discussion of Middle East right now. To understand what is happening in Middle East, you have to understand number one the history, which is very interesting.
Lay it
Because
out.
if you look at history, you could say the land is Palestinian, you could say the land is Jew, you could say the land is even Italian. If you really want to play the game,
Yeah.
because it was under Rome at one point. So there's that is the what's the name of the whole thing they talk in American politics? The reparations game. Okay, if you want to play the reparations game, you gotta go
Yeah.
back millennia,
Yeah.
and that's number one. Number two, there's the recent history, which there are multiple phases to it. If the land was sold, if this land was taken, if it is a consequence of World War II and what happened on one side, there's that. Number three, there is a funding of weapons, and pretty much both sides, all parties were funded pretty much by the same parties. So you have that. There is the humanitarian discourse. It's very hard to have an opinion on that, and I hate how people that have no fucking clue about this discussion just take a stance. Like, yo, like the more I study into it, the more I don't know where to point a finger. That's
Yeah.
fucked up about it.
Yeah.
And it's even crazier because I'm an international person. I know people on both sides.
Mm.
And the more I study into it, because I would like to understand the real situation, have a proper conversation with my friends about this, the more I'm like, I cannot take a stand on this.
Yeah.
I
Well,
cannot.
I mean, what have you seen? Because I'll be honest, I mean, the only thing that I've consumed is I like to consume things on both sides. And I just kind of, whether it's Fox, CNN, scrolling through TikTok and just kind of looking at both sides of things and just trying to draw a conclusion. I like following like guys like Tim Kennedy, who he's actually like boots on the ground over
Yes.
there, which is fascinating. So I like to hear that perspective, but I'm also like, let me see what's going on with CNN. Let me see what shit they're talking about. Let me see what Fox is going. Like I like to hear everything because usually it's somewhere in the middle. That's what I
Mhm.
love about the news in America is because if you can consume left and right and know that both of them are full of shit, the truth is probably somewhere in the middle. And that's how I kind of like to consume things. But like, what's your whole take on everything? Have you gotten so deep to it to where you actually physically have an opinion, or have you got to the point where
I
it's
don't
like
have an opinion yet.
I'm too
That's
close?
how
Yeah.
that's how fucked up it is. I feel like I'm not close enough, even though
Yeah.
I'm few days in.
Right.
And the more I dig deeper, the more it's fucked up.
Yeah.
My genuine question is, what do people actually want? Do they want a unite Palestine? Do they want all these religions living together?
Yeah.
Because if that is the final goal, there is a solution.
Yeah. Well,
I
and
don't know
that's
if you. Huh?
I
What's
was gonna
up?
say. So the thing I think where people start blaming America is kind of where we're at right now, right? When it comes to like Russia and China, like this whole thing, because we've always been for a long time. We've always been whether it's whether it's under the Bush administration or Obama, we've always wanted to look for reasons to make everyone like us. And since 1776, we've really tried to solidify ourselves as the superpower of the world. And we did a great job at it. But similar
You
to the
still
Roman,
are.
we still are. But
You still are.
similar to the Roman Empire, everything does have an end. And
The Roman
there is
Empire died from within. I'm sorry to
cor-
block you. The Roman
correct.
Empire,
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
studied that for
Yep.
13 years.
Yep.
And I'm seeing the exact same thing in America, and I hate it because
Yeah.
America is literally the Roman Empire.
Well, why do you think that is? Why do you think we're following that same trajectory? Because that is what's happening. I mean, we're it's not like Russia and China are going after us. We've literally destroyed
You're doing it yourself.
correct ourselves.
You're doing it
100%.
yourself. So the Roman Empire became so powerful that the Romans started, we say in Italy, adagiarsi sui allori. They started laying on the leaves. They started to chill out. They
Mm.
started to, I mean, at the time, at the top of power, being a Roman was, you were living a pretty good life. And if you think about it, the average American, even with the health insurance shit and education and the debt and everything, compared to many other countries around the world, are living a luxurious life.
Yeah.
Even the broke guy on the street, far better than most people around the world. I lived in China, so I seen stuff.
Mhm.
And the moment where people start dropping their fire that they have inside of them, that's the moment where you start trying to find other problems that do not exist. So you start creating these internal issues that are not really issues. I don't. There was a study where I don't remember who said this one. I gotta look it up. Maybe we gotta add a link on this. There was a study that saying that if you put a group of humans in a perfect environment, they will start to create problems no matter what. because it is human nature. Okay,
Yeah.
so the better the society, the more stupid issues we create, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Does
Well,
that make sense?
100%.
Like, I
Yeah.
listen to people, I'm like,
Yeah.
do you realize what you're complaining about?
Yeah.
Cazzo! Cioè, non lo so. Cioè,
Well, dude, I think that was I think that study was done on rats, if I remember correctly, where they first
yes,
tested it. Yeah,
yes.
they first
Planet 4 is something, it was a planet with numbers.
yeah, and they literally like put rats in, and one had like a city, like a little rat city, and the other one, had nothing, and they would transfer rats back and forth back, and then eventually they were so satisfied with their home that they started to tear each other apart, and they started to fight, and then I'm sure you could probably do that. You pick any city in the world, right? Like close your eyes and pick a city. I'm sure you can do your own little rat experiment with just a community of people because we are like that, right? Like, I mean, fuck. I tell you what, just look at like what's happening with a cul-de-sac. You go to a cul-de-sac in a neighborhood, a really nice, suburban cul-de-sac, and you find 7 houses, 8 houses, right? And they're all around, and you go knock on every door randomly, and you just say, "Hey, do you know, Susan next door? Yeah, I know. She's great. Yeah, yeah. Hey, do you know Bill next door? Yeah, he's great." There's gonna be one person that's like, "Fucking Bill is such a dickhead," you know?
Oh, yeah.
That's
Yeah,
gonna
yeah,
be
yeah.
that's gonna be the and dude, you're in a cul-de-sac, your neighbors, and the only reason you don't like that person is because they parked in your driveway one. Like we create these problems in
The
ourselves.
most stupid shit.
The stupidest shit. And
Okay.
I don't know why that is though. I don't know. Is it an evolutionary thing that we just like
I
fight?
think it's
And
just human nature. It's just
yeah,
human nature.
it's
We
gotta
like
be.
to solve problems, so when we don't have them, we create unnecessary ones.
Yeah, because I mean, if you look at it, we've solved a lot of problems. Like it's not like we've solved world hunger, but there's more people that have food now that don't, right?
Yeah.
Like we've lifted houses to where you can live on the beach in Florida and knock on wood. Most of the time, you're not going to be flooded. Of course, there's those weird hurricanes that come through, but we've figured out this life thing pretty good. And a lot of it, that's what's so fascinating when I do talk to people on this, and they have like these different opinions, very pessimistic opinions about a lot of different topics. And I'm like, dude, we're not that old, like our species.
No.
Like if you think about it, I mean, cars were invented 100 years ago. It's not one person ago. Like our grandparents didn't have, like our
Yeah.
grandparents just started having vehicles. Think about that. It's one person ago that happened, and then you go back 3 other people, and that's when the country was founded by our
And now we
forefathers.
complain about a matcha latte. Go fuck yourself.
Get the fuck.
Go fuck yourself. Go fuck yourself. Cioè, vaffanculo. Vaffanculo. Ok.
We're so new to this thing. It's fascinating to hear these times. But I mean, what do you think about everything that's going on with China and Russia? I'm curious on your opinion because you heard about
You
those
talking about the
fighter
BRICS nations? What are you talking about?
BRICS nations, but also the fighter jets. You heard about that are ramping up from China?
Flying over Taiwan? What you talking about?
No, like they're in our airspace in America and Canada, and I think since 2021 to now, just like last week, they've had over 24 instances where fighter jets from China are just fucking with our American jets. Like they're in our airspace, ignoring us, and doing
Okay.
maneuvers around our jets, just fucking with us to see our limits of flight.
I don't think they want to see why America does not have free healthcare. Trust me. That's the last, and I'm telling this as an Italian. Cioè, no,
Yeah.
no. How can I explain this without being? I lived in China. Okay, Chinese are the most meticulous people in the world,
Mm-hmm.
but they lack one thing culturally. Okay,
What's that?
the creativity. Everything they do, a lot of what they do is taken, copied, and improved from
Yeah.
other people. But I believe they don't have the inventive, especially in the military, to get a superior technology than America.
Yeah.
You can decide if you want to cut this out or not. This is simply my personal experience. And I believe it is a fantastic culture, by the way. It's very similar to the Italian one. So I think that Americans, also compared to, for example, also also Italians, in that sector and other sectors are far superior in terms of how they treat it, how much they invest in it. And I don't think China wants to understand, wants to find out.
Yeah.
No.
I mean, what about all right, so what about if China teams up with other countries?
Okay, we want to talk about BRICS nations. There's a whole
Yeah.
discussion about how the entire world wants to create a system that goes against the American financial system,
Mhm.
which is running the world right now. All the petrol, all the commodities we buy revolve around the dollar.
Right.
First of all, 60-70% of transactions around the world are made in US dollar. So the US dollar is still the superior, mostly used thing.
Mhm.
Number two, there's human nature. Humans don't want to change, okay, on general. Creating change is very hard. So
Right.
you know that American dollar is the most used. You know that the entire world is holding American debt. And now you're putting together some of the most questionable regimes in the world controlled by people with a strong ego that should collaborate. They should collaborate for the sake of a team of multiple nations. Create a currency, which means giving up their sovereignty of their currency, which is a big sacrifice to do. And all European nations that joined the euro, except for Germany, regret joining the euro.
Yeah.
Okay. And do something better and convince the rest of the world to switch a system that is working already to something new by those
Yeah.
regimes.
But are they going to do it?
No, they're
Yeah.
trying, but I don't think they'll be able to.
Yeah.
Cioè,
Yeah.
unless you have true democracies, true regimes that are well accepted around the world. For example, if Russia and China would operate as India, then yes, then maybe yes.
Yeah.
India is kicking
India's
ass.
doing right. Yeah.
India is a future superpower. I know it already. But yes, so
Yeah, they're
no,
pushing.
I don't see it as a strong future.
And even if it was, I mean, it would be the long game, right? It would be,
Very long game.
yeah, it'd be a century that they might fix it.
Exactly.
Yeah. No, I agree. I agree with that. I think, but it is kind of a slippery slope that what we're doing right now, where we're kind of, I've said this before, where I do think America is the greatest country in the world. And I think it will be for quite some time, long before we're gone.
I give it another 20 years, 30 years
Yeah. Yeah. I think,
at
but
least.
even then, it's still going to be like, the cream of the crop. I mean, it's not like, George Clooney and all the actors are going to go to another country. Like this is always going to be the place, I think, where
George
people
Clooney is in Italy, by the way.
yeah, I did see that. Yeah, that's funny. Um, well, who wouldn't be? I mean, we've talked about this before, but once you get the opportunity that you want, you get the success. Italy and most parts of Europe is just a great place to retire. Healthcare and all that is obviously, we could talk about that too. But I think it's fascinating that we are in such turmoil in our country. Personally, this is my opinion. There's so many great things about this country, but just like any other country, there's great things about China, as you mentioned, that maybe we don't have, right? Like we don't have the ability, the resources to make things as quick and as cheap as China does. And that's mainly because they pay their folks 50 cents an hour. But the point is though, we do outsource, right? We do get things from other countries because we think it's either better, which it's more like the latter, which is it's cheaper. So that means me as Americans, we can profit if we're a company or a business, right? And greed has always been the one thing that has driven America to be the number one super. It's scary though when I look kind of around, and it's hard to find good food, and it's very, very expensive to live. Again, I want to talk to you about this because I know you own property like I do as well. But again, whether the bubble's going to pop or inflation keeps going up and taxes keep my issue is there is so much money we spend in taxes. Forget about California and New York, but if you just live in Idaho and you're paying 6.5 to 7.5%, and your interest rate is 3.5 to 5.5% on your house, the amount of money that you spend, especially in taxes, what does that go to? Well, does it go to your community? Sort of, yeah. You do pay county tax, yeah. That's 100% true. But then why do we pay our government for healthcare and then they outsource to private companies? Private companies charge us out of our paycheck, and now we still get healthcare. However, with some things you have to pay a little bit extra. So now we're triple dipping, right? Do we have the best healthcare in the world? Yeah, I think so. I mean, I
Nope.
think in terms of like surgeons and like,
Nope.
you don't think so?
Nope.
For like the price?
I'm doing a whole research. If you want to
Are you? Yeah, I want
go
to dip
down
into
a
that.
rabbit hole, I will destroy the American healthcare system.
See, the healthcare system is shit. But I mean, in terms of
The,
like,
even the yes, you have among the best surgeons in the world. But if you
yeah,
look at some niches, I focus on orthopedics. Germany is among the top.
Germany,
Germany,
yeah.
Italy are super top.
Yeah, yeah.
If you also
Like,
look at clinical results and stuff.
yeah. And in terms of like stem cells, we're way behind. Like you can go to other countries and get some really great
Hmm.
stem cell research. So like those niches, I agree 100%. But like I think if you talk to a Canadian, for example, versus America, they would want American,
Yeah, a lot of
right?
Canadians come to America to get healthcare.
Right. So I think it's just all relative to where you live, and
It-
but that to me is the problem though, is if it was cheaper to live, take my taxes, take my money, if you're going to fix the roads, if you're going to give me better schools, but we don't have safe schools. Do we have safer schools in other parts of the world? Of course. Well, of course we do. We have cleaner water than other parts of the world, but the conversation is in America. And that, I think, is the problem that I have lately, where my opinion has changed a little bit. I think maybe because I am a father now, so I'm getting a little bit more defensive on like the
Mhm.
future when I'm gone. But I just think it's so shitty that you go to like parts of Chicago and it's worse than some other countries in terms of crime, death rate, single mothers
Tony,
raising kids. You know what I mean?
Tony, I lived in 4 different continents. The only place where I stepped on human shit was California.
Yeah.
On
Or
literally.
literally, yeah. Well, we have
I
a whole
lived in
street that's
China. I've seen
dedicated to
true
them.
misery. I've seen
Yeah.
misery.
Yeah.
Okay, I've seen
Hmm.
it. The only place where I stepped on human shit was the place that is considered the progressive first world country of the world, California.
Yeah. Well, that's why you
What the
stepped in
actual
shit.
fuck?
Yeah, that's why you stepped in shit, because it is progressive. That's the problem. And there's needles everywhere, and there's little to no cops. So, but again, that's my issue. Is I feel like, what are we doing? Like, okay, so women can vote. That's great. Equal rights. That's fantastic. Like, we've made progress over the decades through different administrations. But yeah, of course, there's no slavery anymore. These are all milestones that are fantastic.
Well, depends how
But
you see it.
it depends how you see it. Yeah, you're right. Yeah,
I feel
yeah,
like
you're
the
right.
many
Yeah,
9 to 5s out there are pretty much slavery,
yeah.
just with a
And
contract.
and they have to work their ass off because they have to afford to pay all this stuff. So it's like,
Yes.
is yeah. So is America really looking out for Americans, or are they looking out for themselves because they know no matter what, we're still going to have sex and we're still going to repopulate, and they're always going to be. It's like a restaurant that isn't going out of business. They want to turn the tables. They want to keep people coming in. Like they know they can continue to feed us shitty food, take our taxes, but there is one person born every 7 seconds in America. Like they're not
Wow.
run. Yeah, they're not run out of people. So
Okay.
my question is like, at one point it's going to get to the point where we're bleeding our country dry so much that you can't, because now we're getting forced to live into kind of like shitty parts of town because that's all people can afford. So when you do raise these kids, now you're raising it in a home, because let's be honest, I mean, it is a roll of the dice. Like if you're born in the ghetto in Chicago, you're going to have a shittier life than where I was born. Like
Hmm.
these are facts. Skin color aside, it's your parents, it's your household, it's how you're raised, it's your schools. There's a lot of
Yeah.
factors. And if you're just dealt a shitty hand, you're going to have a shitty life, and a shittier hand means shittier human beings as they get older. More crime, more debt, more bad people. And I just wish that America would stop spending money on every other country for 10 years. That's it. 10 years. They just hang up the phone. Anytime a country sorry, dude, we can't. We're broke. Boom. Even though we're trillions in debt, if we could just
What you should be
sacrifice.
doing with friends when they're dragging you into the club and you're broke.
Yeah,
No,
exactly. Yeah,
no, exactly the same fucking
100%.
thing.
It
Yeah, we're
worries me. It
spending
does.
money like a drunken man. That's crazy as
Yeah.
I don't know. I believe that the major flaw of all this is the ignorance that people have about the system they live in.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
Let me
Okay.
explain. So, capitalism, which most people hate, everybody thinks that the companies are in control of capitalism. But in reality, if you study economics, which is what I went through college for, and if you're actually interested in what the professor is saying, you realize that capitalism is controlled by the consumer. It's all about the consumer.
Mm-hmm.
If a community of 350 million consumers actually realize how much fucking power they have because they're the ones that spend the money,
Mm-hmm.
they could have a ripple effect across every single sector of the United States. Let me make an example. The iPhones keep on getting more expensive on a daily, on a yearly basis. Okay, they do the stupid fucking tricks. You have a Discord or I don't know a WhatsApp team with all Americans and say, guys, let's not buy an iPhone for an entire year. Let's see what happens. Want to bet that iPhones will be $300 cheaper in a couple of months because they're gonna shit their pants.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, cars keep on getting more expensive. Let's not buy cars for a while. Do you know that in China, Volkswagen had the 50% market share of cars? But because China has been producing a lot of Tesla components for Tesla for cheaper, and now they have a very good quality, they're now building electric cars that are more superior than the Volkswagen ones. And Volkswagen is
Wow.
losing market share and has been dropping its electric car prices by a lot. We're not talking about thousands, we're talking about tens of thousands, okay?
Shit.
So it's all about the consumer. If the
Yeah.
American consumer, instead of acting as a hyper individualistic individual, which is another beautiful thing on one side of America, but awful thing on the other,
Mm-hmm.
and starts actually operating as a little bit of a community, you'd be surprised by how much control they could gain back.
Yeah.
Does that
Yeah.
make sense?
100%. Yeah. And I've said that before about, because I eat plant-based, I'm vegan. So the reason why a lot of companies like Tyson Chicken and big milk companies, the reason why they lowered their prices and have switched a little bit to where now they're actually putting in good ingredients is because people stop buying their shit. And we can easily change things. But the problem is doing that is like telling someone that Trump had some good ideas, right? Like it's hard to have that conversation with people because they don't want to listen. Like they look at now too much. They want the fast food quick. They don't give a shit what's going in their face. They just want it quick and now. Like I love the iPhone example because everyone's getting a new iPhone every single day, but the reason why they're so popular is supply and demand. We're giving them a reason to.
Everybody's getting you iPhone. 70% of Americans cannot afford a $1,000 expense. Cioè, my dear friend, you're putting yourself in that situation, you fucked what? Cioè, che cazzo? Cioè, oh!
Why don't I
cannot afford healthcare? No shit! No shit! Cioè, the priorities in this country are fucked.
Yeah.
You know how many times I get attacked on TikTok about what do you know about broke people? You don't know how we live. It's like, bro, I operate in poor areas because that's where I fix these houses to rent them out for cheaper to people because I'm actually going against the real estate market partially. And I see what they get drive. I see how they handle the house. You go in these houses, dirty as fuck, filled with McDonald's boxes, and in front of that house you have a BMW sitting, used, but it's still a BMW. So you're telling me that your priorities in life are fucked. The insecurity of looking broke rather than actually improving your life is much stronger. Oh!
Hey, yo, Jones effect. That's what it is. Everyone wants to keep up with the fucking Joneses. Everyone wants to.
Stupid.
Yeah, everyone wants to have the new thing. Yeah. And that's what I was talking about with greed, right? Earlier, like for whatever reason, we have this instilled in us. And again, I look at it's tough, man. Like, you've only been here 5 years, right? But coming from someone who has kind of lived until his 20s, until I started getting smart, getting into real estate and, actually investing money and doing what I had to do to have forward thinking to actually raise a family. But I was the guy. I was the guy that wanted to be flashy and go out and live paycheck to paycheck, and I was making 70 grand in my 20s. Like I was that guy that was broke. And it's not it's not for lack of not educating yourself. The problem is there's no resource to educate yourself. Like now, of course, there's YouTube and there's people like you that you can find and you can actually say, by the way, shout out YouTube. Go check out Amadeo's YouTube. But you can find resources now, right? Like, so there is no excuse now. But if you're in your 20s, for 20 years, your parents probably have gotten you the new toy. They got you the new fucking Barbie. They got you the new this. So we're already, dude, instilled at a young age. And I challenge the U.S. government in this instance. Like Italy's another great example. We keep talking about it, but obviously you're from there, so you can speak to this. But didn't they just pass a law saying that you can't sell food if it's not
natural?
If it's not natural, right? So if it's got any artificial,
like the fake beef is illegal.
Did that pass though? So that's official.
Yep.
See, that to me is the government stepping in and doing what's best for their citizens. Now,
the conservative government of Italy.
Yeah. But, dude, at the end of the day, sometimes you have to have conservative ideas on one thing.
It's not conservative.
I'm sorry for us Americans. But sometimes you have to have conservative on one and progressive on the other. And the problem is we're trying to do more of the progressive bullshit and give people whatever they want because we want to feed them that freedom bullshit. That American dream bullshit. That hey, eat what you want. Smoke cigarettes and have McDonald's and have fast food. And again, we shouldn't ban everything, but I'm saying at one point there's got to be we should probably fucking take a look at these ingredients.
Well, you should also take a look at yourself, your people. Okay.
Well, yeah.
When you walk around the city and you question if you look at people like, does this person walk or does this person move around rolling? Then you're having a food problem. Yeah. Then you're having a food problem, and you have a food problem in this country, man.
Yeah.
But and I want to be very serious.
Yeah, I know. But I mean, think about it. If you're American and you've been raised in America for 20-something years, and you're making the average American makes $37,000 a year.
How many?
37,000. I mean, I think that was a report in 2022, so I don't know what it is now, but I'm pretty sure it's
57.
Household.
Household is 57.
Yeah.
Considering that the average household is divorced, is 37. That's another big issue in this country. You guys get married like it's a joke.
I know. We get divorced what is it? 4 out of 5, I think, get divorced.
Yes.
Yeah.
Advice to all men. I'm 28 and I'm still single. Tony is married, but he's older. Do it after 30, please. Okay. From 20 to 30, we're still thinking with our second brain and not with our first brain. Learn first, then get married. Madonna
Hey.
Santa. Madonna Santa. Oh, it has to be said.
Well, that's
Cioè,
how it needs to be. And that's how I did. I did it on purpose that way just because,
also my parents.
yeah, you had to. You had to. And by the way, I mean, I'm 38 for people, go look at my fucking Instagram. I look like I'm
And he
20.
still looks like my son. So,
But dude, it's stress, right? It's less stress. You look younger, but also you got to take care of yourself too. And so being 30, I think 30 has always scared us, right? Because in America, we're always taught, like when we go to school, bro, like they'll teach us in school step 1, step 2, step 3. And step 3 is you're 30, you need to have a house, kid, white picket fence, the whole shebang. So there's always this pressure for us in our 20s to get to that point at 30. But the answer is there is no right answer. That's the answer. There is no right age. There is no right person. Like I don't really believe in that. It just so happens it's all timing, right? Like if I met Brenda in my 20s, we wouldn't be together because I was an asshole. I was broke. I wasn't ready. But when I met Brenda this time, I was in my mid 20s. I had my first house. I had another one on deck to be a rental. Like I had my shit together. So because my mental and physical health was good, I was able to accept that love from her. Her mental health was good. Boom, and it's just timing. That's all it is. And hopefully it lasts forever. But I mean, at the end of the day, the only way that is going to last forever if we continue to take care of ourselves, and that's the problem that a lot of people don't have. They don't have that
they
mentality.
get complacent.
They get complacent.
They get complacent.
Yeah, that's right. So, and you, like you said, you're in your 20s. You're not ready to settle. Like she got shit going on. You don't want anybody to hold you
No,
back.
if
You don't want.
if I had a partner, it wouldn't be a problem.
Right.
But I still would not marry now.
Of course. Yeah, it's smart.
I would not marry now.
I know. Smart. Yeah, you got too much going on anyway.
Well, now
It's
I have
tough.
to also bring myself up.
Yeah.
Fucking hell.
Well, I mean, also too, I mean, being married, the one thing I learned was they always say 50-50. It is 50-50 in a lot of aspects, but it's not.
It's 100-100. You
It
put in
is.
as much as you can, both of you. And you should not judge too much the other side because you don't know how much effort it is for them.
Yeah.
There was a beautiful thing I noticed of my father. My father used to always complain how other people were doing stuff like that. Do not expect your same approach from another person. They might be putting 100%, which for you might be 60.
Right.
So you need to also understand where they come from. And that's, I believe, also in the relationship.
Yeah, absolutely. Because if you
However,
don't do that, oh, go ahead.
However, if you know that a person can put much more and that person is putting nothing, then you know that they're not putting what they can.
That's right. Yeah, that's what I was going to say, because then there's resentment and it's just a whole shit show of issues. Yeah, you need to make sure you do that. And, again, I always say that I don't know if Brenda's the right person for me. I know she's the right one for me now. I know I'm super happy. I know we got we got a beautiful daughter. Like, things are good, but you never know what's going to happen. And I think me always making sure that I'm better than I was yesterday. And in the meantime, doing the best I can to be a good father and a good husband, but always trying to work on myself every single day. And then hopefully my wife does that as well, work on herself every single. Because I think the problem with marriage is this is not marriage advice by any means. But the one issue I always see is we try to fix each other. So like me, let's say if I was to try to fix Brenda and get her to do what I wanted to do, what I think is a good wife. This is why there's a lot of divorce is you don't have your shit together. But you're trying to tell someone else to get their shit together. And the next thing you know, you're raising a kid by yourself. It's not a good situation.
Not a good situation.
Yeah. So
that's the other thing. Very important, but you know this already. Be careful of having kids. Like if you know that you're gonna be with this person for a while, then yes. If not, don't do it. Because the biggest present you can give to a kid, and this is something that how can I explain this? When I was in Italy, I used to be empathetic when I learned the story that I didn't have. Like a friend of mine didn't have a father, didn't have a mother, or something happens. I come to America and I come to realize that kind of story is not an exception, is the normality here. That is the normality here.
Oh yeah.
So it's like, oh no, you should have empathy. No, it's normal. Rather having empathy, I understand that I'm the privileged one. Yes, okay, I'm okay with that. I'm okay with accepting that I'm in privilege.
Yeah.
I'm privileged of being, yes.
Yeah.
Cioè, it's, guys, before having kids, don't play with it. I probably put the concept out very badly, will sound very bad, but it's okay.
Yeah.
I don't care. I don't care. Before having kids, understand that it's a life and it will need both of you.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Don't play the game.
Yeah. It's scary, man, because I have a lot of friends that are now divorced with kids, and they try to share custody. And I mean, I'm a kid of divorce, and my parents got separated in my teens, and then they got divorced. I think when I was 15 or 16, and that was hard, man. I mean, I rebelled for a long time, and I had a lot of resentment to them, and I wasted a lot of years being mad at them and not talking to them, and acting out, lashing out, being irresponsible, getting in car wrecks, being reckless. Like, I did some stuff that I probably shouldn't be here, and I'm very lucky. And that is not because of them, it's because of how I reacted to it. But bottom line, it's tough when you're a kid. Until you get to 25, 30, you're still learning how this world operates. And even then, even
And
at
you need
25,
both. You
you
need
need
both.
you need both. You need both, exactly.
You
And
know what I'm saying?
that's,
Cioè,
yeah, it's tough, man.
yeah, and it pisses me off that it is normality. No.
Yeah.
Cioè, it's not a game, it's a human life. That human life needs both. It needs to be, I believe, because it needs to be nurturing and nice as the mother, but it needs that push from the father.
Yeah.
In my case, my father was the cavalry. When needed in hardcore situations, he would kick us and make us realize stuff.
Yeah.
And my mother was the infantry, kicking us every day.
Yeah.
And it was needed. It was needed. It's fundamental. So I'm very happy for you too.
Thank you, man.
Very happy for you too.
Thank you.
She will be. You got beautiful concepts.
No, it is great, and I'm even noticing that now when she's only a couple months old. Where not that I'm disciplining her by any means, because she doesn't know anything, right? She's learning things, but there is a certain mentality I think is interesting, to where she does still want to nurture, and we're going to obviously do that for as long as needed. But her mentality, I could tell, is nurturing. It's, oh, she's crying, let me pick her up. But then I'm like, let her cry for a bit. It's okay. Like, unless we change her diaper, she's fed.
Put her on a
she's not
motorcycle. That's what my father did. 3 years old. Put him on a motorcycle.
Yeah, throw them in the water. They'll swim. They're fine.
They'll swim.
Yeah. But there's like, that's going to be my mentality a little bit, not because I was raised that way, even though I was, but you have to have both, and you have to have, because the world is tough. One thing I did notice with a lot of parents that I talk to, because everyone tries to give you advice when you have the kid. They're like, "Are you doing this method? Because you should be doing this instead." There's this progressive. Remember, everyone does this, and I'm like, dude, you raise your kid however you want. I'm gonna raise my kid however I want. But it's interesting when people try to give you that advice, because the advice is so fucking politicized. It's terrifying.
I got a question for you.
Yeah, shoot.
Regarding raising, because we talked about education.
Yes.
Public school, homeschool, or private school?
Homeschool.
Okay. Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah.
Why?
So a couple of reasons. I know what it was like being in school. I remember. It's obviously very different. I don't like a lot of things about public school in particular. Forget about the mass shootings, because obviously that's horrendous. Let's say that gets fixed tomorrow.
It's a national sport. Sorry.
It is. It is. You're right.
Sorry.
It's a national sport.
Sorry.
Right. Not as frequent, but it is national.
Yeah.
But so put that aside. Let's say that was fixed tomorrow. Here's the best way I could say it. Teachers don't get paid enough, and every single human being is tribal. Every single one.
Mm-hmm.
So a teacher that doesn't get paid shit is going to have opinions, and a good day or a bad day, she's going to release those opinions on the youth. Whether that's a good thing or bad, that's your prerogative. Me, if I have the freedom and the ability to spend that 6 hours with my child, I'd rather do that. So let's say the public school system is perfect. I would rather spend more time with my child, because I'm not an expert. We're going to hire somebody to come into our home, or we're going to try to do as much as we can ourselves, but we're no experts on a lot of different topics. But we're going to teach them things that we think is important for them to be successful. And I just don't think the public school system has ever been or will ever be that point. And even if it was, it's taught by people that do have agenda. And whether that's a private school or public school or an individual teacher, it's not fair to put that responsibility on one person teaching sometimes 35 kids in a classroom, where every single person is different. Every single person has a different background. And I feel like in this country in particular, the last 10 years and moving forward, we seem to be wanting to, lack of a better word, satisfy the minority and not so much the majority. And that to me is terrifying. A quick example would be if there's a transgender child, what they think is transgender child, in that classroom, maybe they won't talk about that topic because they don't want to offend that person. I think that's irresponsible, because I think if that does exist, these kids need to know about it, and they need to be educated the right way on certain things, as opposed to being dogmatized one way because if you get, if you shelter a kid, like look at everything that's going on with our country right now. I mean, you're getting pushed in one direction and you think the grass is greener on the other side, but if you're not educating yourself on your own, you're not as objective. You don't know a lot of
Yeah.
things. And I just don't think the public school system has ever been there, and I think it's just getting worse and worse. And it's very scary.
Interesting. So the problem, I understand your point of view, and I agree with the concept you're saying. I will mix it. Let me explain. So one thing that school does, that homeschooling does not, is teaching the child about society, about interacting with people,
Community.
putting them in a cage of sharks, in the good and the bad. Okay.
I agree.
Growing in school teaches you to understand who are good people, who are bad people, when you should put defense, when you should act, when you should react, how the system works. I had a couple of interesting episodes when I was little.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I knew already how the system works. So at the age of 10, and I use it to my advantage very badly, politically wise. Okay. Because I didn't know the consequences of my actions. Then I learned them. So I stopped doing it. But it taught me a lot, which homeschooling will not. I agree with the teachings. However, I will say this. The public schooling system in America, I believe, failed because of lazy parents. Let me explain. We will go to school, and my school was private public. It was a German school in Italy, so we were studying, half of the subjects were in Italian and half were in German. The Italian were public school and the German were private school. It's a mixed up system. Amazing school, by the way. Teachers had opinions. Opinions were said, and then you would come home. And if you have two present parents, and both of my parents work their ass off, but you still have the time, and you know that you always have time, it's all about how you organize yourself. We would bring out the topics and we would debate them. So we would have the point of view of the school and then the point of view of the parents. Sometimes they would match, sometimes they would not. Sometimes you would learn to create your own opinion. I believe that the public schooling system in America fails because the parents, and then again, considering a lot of single parent households that have the parent that is working and doesn't have the time and blah, 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 are not there. If you have the parents to double check or listen to what is happening at school, then it would be different. The scandal that happened with the trans kid, I don't know if you can say this or not. There was an episode in Loudoun County, which is where I live, about a trans kid raping girls in the public bathroom. Okay, that happened because the parents here are much more present, so they learned quickly what happened, and then the scandal came out and the lawsuit came out. Does that make sense?
So he was a trans boy that was saying he was a girl.
He was going to the bathroom of the girls, raped them, was moved to another school first, and the school kept it all secret. Then it happened again. Lawsuit came out. The parents were considered by the last administration domestic terrorists, but then they won the lawsuits because,
I mean, that's
talking about rape here. You can look it up.
Yeah,
but again, because the parents here are present, but because this is the Leesburg, Ashburn here is the creme de la creme of societe. These are entrepreneurs that have people who work for them and they have time to spend with the kids.
Yeah. And, listen, I think there's so many great things with public school. And in terms of just community and socializing, I think that's super important for the child. Although, from what we've seen and did the research, there's so many communities now where there's in any city, you can look it up to where there's a homeschool community, and every single day at 3 p.m., they all get out and they socialize for an, you know what I mean? So every day they're out and about for a couple hours. I don't know if you could do this, but I can't pick apart. If we were to do half and half, I think that's a great idea. We've talked about that, to where maybe in the early stages, and then maybe towards middle school or high school, maybe we let them go to public school. And some people might think, well, you don't want to throw them to the sharks. Well, either way, they're going to go to sharks anyway, right? Because they're going to raise with those sharks. But hopefully we can instill, if we could put them into school at 15, they've had 15 years of my critical thinking skills, of my way of thinking. So there's so much influence. So that's what terrifies me, is just online. I mean, obviously, but there's so much influence, and what you're saying makes total sense. The problem with your thinking, though, is you're giving Americans the benefit of the doubt. You're saying, hey, listen, you guys should do this. Problem is, no one's going to do that. No parents are going to be.
It's a lot of effort. It's lazy.
No
Laziness.
parents are going to be it's like the cell phone example, right? Is if you grab 100 kids at the age of 12, most likely 99 of them have a cell phone.
Mhm.
So I don't believe that kids should have cell phones at that early age, just like I don't believe they should chop off at an early age. But but it's all about the
Yo, we're
it's
going hard to stuff. Chill out. Fuck.
but let me just like I don't believe they should have tattoos at an early age. How about that?
No, no, you can stay with the past one. It's fine.
Yeah. But the point is though, it's now I'm trying to convince other parents, hey man, don't tell your kids that they should have a cell phone. It's like what you said with the iPhone, right? If we just stop buying iPhones. Well, if parents just stop giving their kids cell phones, we'd have less mental health issues at an early age. But for us to create a discord and to have a big group of people and say, hey parents, let's not do that. So I cannot rely on every other parent, because every other parent, I think, is just not there
It's
yet.
lazy.
They're really, and don't get me wrong, I'm lazy in some aspects too, but
Yeah.
right now I have the mentality where I'm not going to be lazy with my kid, and that's why it's hard for me to drop them off. Like I have friends that have jobs that they just can't be home. Thankfully, Bryn and I are home, but they drop them off. Think about this right now at daycare, 6 months old, year old at daycare. They spend $250 a week
Mm-hmm.
for daycare. So you're dropping off your kid from 8 to 5, and that's being generous because that's when you get off work, probably, right? 5 o'clock. So 8 to 5 at a year old for the next 11 months, 2 months off because of summer, and then boom, you're back again. So all that time, what is this kid getting taught? Like, who's mommy? Who's daddy? Who's the teacher? Who's like, they are so young and so influential. Every minute that is spent away from you, whether they're getting good information or bad information, they're getting information. And I'd rather give them bad information at home than entrust someone else for 6 hours.
Okay.
And again, I'm lucky enough to where I do work from home and I plan to work from home. So
Yep.
I'm going to make it to the point to where I'm going to do it. But that's what's so scary about it is I just think that if we were to get some sort of maybe tax break, maybe there's some incentive for me to go to public school, but the cons just are outweighing the pros, in my opinion, especially with, you can have these communities of people that are homeschooled and, like there's one down the street from us and they meet up, it's 100 kids that just go to these parks and
Okay.
they do,
Cioè, as long
you know
as
what I
they
mean?
get
Yeah.
the occasion to socialize,
Yeah.
but also naturally. Cioè, the good,
Yeah.
the bad, and the ugly.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because the more you put them in a bubble, the worse they will be when they will be released into real society.
Yeah. I agree.
And
Absolutely.
that's what I
Because it
see
is
among a
worse.
lot of young people.
Yeah, because it is worse, especially now. I mean, and the only way we're going to know is if we do this study for 2 kids, one study them for 20 years, one homeschool and one public school. And let's see what happens 20 years from now. That'd be an interesting case study is doing that with kids, because I don't know if there's a right or wrong. I think it all comes down to good parenting. And how
Do you
much do
think
we,
the mother? How
oh, go
much
ahead.
do you? Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, how much do you think like you can remember, honestly, from K through 6? You might
Snippets.
not a lot, right? So I'm like,
I remember when I told the professor that she's a piece of shit in front of the entire class. That was
what
really funny
what year
because
was
she
that?
gave me a bad grade. Huh?
What year was
I
that?
was I was like second grade.
That's awesome.
I let you stand up and like you're an asshole.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Was that that was in Italy, or was that
That was the German School of Milan.
German school? Yeah, yeah.
I will
So
always remember that. Always.
did she come up to you with the ruler and say something in German to you?
No, she
Smack
kicked me
you?
out of the class.
She did. All right.
That's nice and simple.
That's not
But
too
I
bad.
was pride. I had pride.
Yeah, yeah. It's like I did it. Yeah, but
Yeah.
that's the thing, man. I don't remember a lot from grade school, and I mean, I remember a few classes like biology, which was cool, and like I was in chemistry. That was fun. I remember some things here and there, but I just don't remember a lot. Like, there's nothing I do now in my 30s that I'm like, ugh. Thank God I learned that in public school, right? Like, think about it. I mean, there's not now. If in high school, if they start teaching real estate, economics, like you have to go instead of mathematics. You want to teach them math, but I don't need fucking trigonometry and all that shit, and I don't need to learn about hexagons, and you know what I mean? Like, if they taught them real life lessons, different conversation. Like, if I know he's going to be good to go when he gets out of high school, beautiful. But I went to high school, man, and I only learned shit out on the streets or through my own research. Nothing I do today is applied from public.
What pisses me off is that most thing that you should learn when it comes to finances, accounting, is fairly simple. It's very simple. It would take studying it 1 year maybe in school. That's what pisses me off. It's like, I understand if it is something that you need a degree. I have an economics degree, the main concepts that are helping me in my life financially can probably be learned in 3 weeks of full-on studying. That's it.
Yeah.
It's not a big addition. So I feel like they're doing it on purpose, honestly. They
Oh,
don't
I
want
think they
people
are.
to be economically and financially educated.
Sure.
They
Because
want
you
to
know what?
consume.
Yeah. Because why would you need a credit card if you knew all that information? You know, why would everyone would save up and buy a house and the market would be great? Like there would be no apartment buildings. There would be
Even
no,
taxes.
yeah, even
There are
tax.
ways to pay much less. It's incredible. I
Yeah.
studied the tax system and I believe it's a piece of wonder, the American tax system. It's just that people are not aware of it.
Oh, dude, especially now that I own a business and I have for a couple of years and
Yeah.
just looking at
No,
all the
but
numbers. Oh my.
even if you're just an employee, there's still some beautiful advantages for you. You just need to be aware of it. The
Yeah.
problem is people don't tell you that.
Yeah.
I have one last question for you. This is
Sure.
about the future. Do you think that our generation of parents will be better than the past?
Oof, that's a big question.
Hmm.
In
Will we
some
be
respects,
lazier? Will we be putting as much effort? Will we be more loving? Will we create better humans?
no. Maybe innovative humans.
You think innovative? To
I think
innovate, you need to put in a lot of effort.
that's true. But I think there's more innovation that has happened in the last 50 years than 100.
Okay.
So hopefully it's going up, right? I mean, because history has shown us that it is going up, in fact. But I don't know if it's going to stay on that track. I don't know. That's a tough question because I think in some respects we are. I'll give you a great example. I just talked to my buddy. He was on the podcast. Shout out episode 214, where I was randomly calling a couple dads that are good buddies of mine. Both of them work corporate jobs, work their ass off, drop their kids off at daycare. Mom's at home doing her thing. I think we're in a very cool time to where if you do it right, I'm not going to say I'm doing it right because I got a lot of work that I need to do. But I am going to try to do this to where I am home every single day working from home, as is my wife, or I'm going to make enough money to where my wife doesn't have to work and we could save that money and not do child. Because childcare, I mean, that's, $1,500 a month people are paying,
Hmm.
right? So if you do the math on the average salary we're talking about, it's pretty much
That's a lot of money.
that's a lot of money. So I think we're in a cool generation to where these adults are raising their kids from home. And maybe in 20 years, these kids are going to appreciate life more if there's good parents, which our parents didn't have that opportunity to. I know yours
Nope.
didn't. Mine didn't either. My dad worked 3 jobs. My mother, worked 2 jobs and also raised me. There was no fucking fancy schmancy ways to make money at home like there is now. So, in that respect, I think maybe we might be more compassionate humans down the road. But you also look at it like there's also more shitty people than there was 100 years ago. So, it's like we're kind of on the polar sides of each
Then
spectrum to where,
we don't have more shitty people. We just give them a platform to be expose themselves. That's it.
yeah, that's a great point. Yeah, that's a great point.
Very simple. Very
Yeah.
simple.
So, the microscope is on more people now. So we're starting to see. That's the fun thing about social media, right? Like I noticed it on your page in particular, where there's so many people that have a voice, but if you were like invite them on the podcast, they wouldn't come.
Nope.
They want the voice. That's it.
I call it keyboard lions.
Keyboard. I love it.
That's how we call them.
Yeah.
Leoni
Well,
della
listen,
tastiera.
we're already at an hour, man. I didn't even realize.
Yeah.
A lot going on. Do you what's going on? Tell me real quick about the podcast. Give your podcast a shout out. I'll shout out mine too, so you can repurpose
Oh
this.
no
But
no 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 no! The podcast. So no.
what's
The
going on?
podcast didn't start yet.
Oh, is it?
So what you saw is was a test that we did, and honestly, the feedback I'm getting is pretty good. I had, and this is the beauty of the podcast. I had
Yeah.
a conservative influencer friend of mine, Bogdan.
Mhm.
He's Romanian, lives in America, and he's a conservative focused influencer.
Oh, cool.
Stay here at my house. And we tried the format. We put 2 microphones and started talking, and it was a conversation. 4 hours of conversation. It's,
I love it.
and the locations were amazing. We did it at my house. We did it in front of the U.S. Capitol, which was really cool.
I saw that one. That was cool.
Almost got arrested on that one because police was walking. I was like, "What you guys doing?" And, oh,
Just
fine,
doing
all good.
podcast.
We're just immigrants speaking.
Yeah.
It's all good. So the format is good. Again, I'm in the talks with Tony. He's teaching me some stuff. So a lot of things will come out in the future. You see that.
I love it.
But yeah, no, the feedback is good. I'm just trying to put together a group of people because it will mostly be the same people with different topics.
Mhm.
It's mostly immigrants. I got a mix of immigrants and Americans. That will be very interesting.
Nice.
We want to take the topics of the top podcasts, even the one that are controversial, like whatever podcast.
Oh yeah.
Okay, that kind of stuff, but the
Yes.
perspective of immigrants, not the Americans. So what we see from the outside, no
Oh,
filter, no filter. That, but also finance and many things that we are doing.
I love that. Yeah, especially because they're
Um,
so. I'm sure with you guys, it's like watching a zoo. Like you're just
for
watching us
us,
Americans, and
America,
yeah,
yes. To me, the whatever podcast is the exact thing that I told you earlier. People
yeah.
creating problems that do not exist in the first place. Stupid, waste of time.
Instead of just working hard and being grateful with what you got and just trying to be better.
Yeah,
Yeah,
being grateful, not being enough greed, but not too much. It's normal to be greedy. Just
yeah,
understand that you are and don't do it too much. And what else? Yeah, I kind of felt drawn to it now because the whole TikTok situation. I was literally earning a full time income on TikTok, and this is, guys, if you're doing TikTok, be careful. It is a Chinese company. You never know what these guys want to do. I was making a full time income, and 3 weeks ago, my revenue per minute went 80-fold down to less than a cent per thousand views. I don't know where. So diversify. Do not put all your eggs in a basket, which fortunately is what I did. So I'm good.
yeah,
I have other incomes, but be careful. Let's see if I'm gonna get it back. But I still want to go with the podcast.
yeah. Has it still not come back? Nothing's
Three
going.
weeks later,
That's
support sucks. It's an AI responding to you after 4 days, and it
yeah,
didn't really solve anything. So we'll see. I still love them because they allow you to go viral, but I feel that if you want to create an actual community, you gotta expand.
yeah. Yeah, like I had a couple of videos that went viral, and I think there was like 3 or 4 that hit like 10 million. And
Wow.
yeah, but I mean, I was at the point. I think it probably, if it happened to you, it might have happened to me at that time because yeah, I was making like $5 in the creator fund, and I'm like, 10 million views, $5. Same thing with Instagram Reels and all, and Meta, it's all that. And we talked about this on the phone where these big corporations, again, it goes back to supply and demand, right? It's the iPhone analogy to where all these creators went on these platforms and we're putting all our eggs in our basket, and we're looking for ways to monetize. And now they got us. They got us by the balls because what else are you going to do? And if anybody out there is thinking about being a creator, take it from me because I've been doing this a long time because I knew these companies are shisty. Is I have my own website. I monetize that way, and there's no fees. I manage everything on my own, and it's way better than, you're not going to go viral if you have your own website, but if you could build up a nice community and people that respect what you do, there's ways like subscription models, Patreon. These are all cool ways to kind of make incremental income as opposed to relying on these companies. Because if TikTok does go away tomorrow, or Meta goes away tomorrow, Zuckerberg decides he doesn't want to pay creators anymore, at least you have some money to fall back. Or you could be like, Amadeo and have your six
Real
hats up.
estate.
Go real estate.
By
That's the way to
decrepit
go,
homes.
baby. That's the way to go. Flip them, baby. I like it.
Oh no, I rent now. I don't flip anymore.
Oh yeah, yeah. You're back to rent. Did you finish that property? You're gonna finish it next month.
Finishing in 1 month. That's number
Nice.
10. Number 10.
Good for you,
Double
man.
digits.
And you're renting them all? Good for you, buddy. It's awesome. It's the way to go. Renting is and are you doing any of that like consulting work, or like if someone were
I
to reach out,
do
would you?
some phone calls and
Yeah,
I
okay.
invest the money of people. So I'm doing now partnerships if people from abroad or here want to invest money with me. So I
Okay, good.
partner up with them. We split. They give me the money. It's kind of like a portfolio manager.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I like it. Okay. Well, I'll leave your Instagram and all that shit behind. So if anybody wants to reach out, that's where you go. Episode notes,
I'll
check
do the
those out.
same.
My man.